All right. Well, keep posting your questions in there. Stevens is going to go ahead and put them in 90, making sure that we're answering all your questions, whether it's throughout this webinar or when we get to the end, we'll definitely do a little IDS session if this is your first time joining. So our typical agenda, we'll do a quick intro to Jim and I. We'll go through a short history of rocks, why you should be creating rocks, when to set them, how to set them up, which goes into making them smart. And then we'll also, throughout that time, take a look at how that relates to actually using 90, the system, with setting them up, making them smart, etc. So we'll go through a couple specific things like putting them on multiple teams. And then I also get a lot of feature requests when it comes to rocks. So I wanted to show you guys a couple new things that we'll be adding into the system over the course of the rest of the year, just to address some of those questions. And I'm sure you guys will have more thoughts and feedback for me as we're going through this too. So lastly,
I gotta say, Christine, the stuff that we utilize in 90, and when I take clients through their quarterlies, I'm always showing them new features, right? Because they don't really keep up. It's like they got a job to do. But the stuff that you guys have built into 90 over the last 9 months, year, to help make rocks more smart and more capable, it's been really phenomenal. And so in case if you're having trouble with rocks, I guarantee you I'm going to say 5 times a day, well, now that they got this in 90, it's going to be so much easier for you. And they just don't even know the features there yet.
Hopefully. All right.
I'll keep track. I'll keep a tab.
So quick intro to me. I'm Christine Watts, head of client success and product here. So I'll be the one that's really taking us mainly through 90. And then Jim is here for guiding us through rocks and thinking about the concept as a whole. So Jim, I'll let you do a quick intro to yourself too.
Yeah, hi everybody. I'm coming here from the powerful Impact Leadership Center in Cleveland, Ohio, on everyone's bucket list. And what I'll be doing today is just kind of framing up where rocks sit in this whole notion of a company operating system, and why it's so important it's really those real cornerstones of having a company operating system is being able to operationalize, to create discipline around accomplishing your goals and taking those steps. And so I'm excited to, like I said, all my clients, I always end up doing extra sessions about helping people do rocks. The more I spend time with them really figuring it out, it's like light bulbs go off all the time. So I'm prepared for there to be hundreds of people today with light bulbs going off, like, oh, that's how it's supposed to work. Yeah. So we'll see if we can capture what Chris calls impact moments. My partner calls them. Let's find those impact moments. All right. So Christine, let's start with a short history of rocks. And so this notion really came from, and I can't say it was actually Stephen Covey that invented rocks. I don't think so. I think this story's been around for a long time. And it's really about, there's big rocks. These are things that are the most important things. And there's the pebbles are the things that happen around the base, and sand are less important. But this notion is really that if you put the big rocks in the jar first, if the jar represents all of your time, and I've seen this talked about oh, is this your life? Where do you put the big rocks in? What are the most important things? It still looks like a full life, even if it's just full of big rocks, but then you can fill in other things. From the standpoint of a company operating system, the real most important thing is getting to the place where you've got your highest priorities and you can be really clear about those, but they have to go into your jar of time first. You have to give them primacy in there, because then you're going to fit everything else around them. And we'll talk about why it's so much easier to fit the pebbles in around the rocks, just kind of like even in real life where you can filter them down in. The pebbles are things you're doing on a regular basis. So you're probably better, a little more facile at moving those things around, especially the sand, all those little things that come up. You're going to be better at deflecting those and putting them in the right places. But the rocks, that's the new stuff. That's the frontal lobe design stuff. You got to put it in first. Otherwise, it's never going to get done. So it's about accomplishing your goals. Let's move on.
All right. And I saw you put your apologies to the geologists out there.
Yeah, I just, the short history of rocks, I don't know. I thought it was funny whenever I put it in there. Maybe it's not. So if we think about this idea, part of what we're trying to do with company operating systems in general, and certainly with EOS, we talk about, we're trying to develop this discipline around being able to be predict, to be able to make plans for the future. As humans, we are sucky at planning. We've got this whole frontal lobe thing. We're one of the few species that has this frontal lobe, and it is for planning, and it is for just, being creative, and it's for worrying. It takes up, that's where all the energy gets consumed in your brain. If you can move things out of the frontal lobe and into the middle part of your brain, you're so much more efficient with that stuff. Christine, I know you spend a lot of time in your frontal lobe, but it's exhausting, right? You got to get as many things back into that discipline part, that regular recurring things. So we give you frameworks for how to think about the very hard work of predicting. We're still agrarian people. We still are mostly able to predict what I have to do this season to survive next season, right? That's still where we're at as a species. So EOS does a great job of framing it up, but so a lot of other operating systems do as well. If we think about we're on this road, the road's not going to be straight, but let's think about it just straight, just because it's easier that way. Way out there beyond the horizon is our just cause. This is our this notion, this thing we're never going to achieve. It's where we're headed, but we can't see it. And then when we talk about that 10-year goal, that 10-year target, that's the horizon. That's as far out as we can possibly imagine right now. And we can make it really definitive. Then we even, but closer is 3 years. It's like a third of the way towards that definitive SMART goal that we put at 10 years. We have a 3-year thing, but it's still kind of far out there. I still can't be too specific. Pull that in 1/3 again, 1 year. 1 year, I can start to kind of really wrap my head around this. And with the discipline and regularity of trying to get better and better at predicting, I can get better and better at figuring out what can I get accomplished this year. And the real question is, what do I have to accomplish this year to be on track to get to my 3-year goals, to be on track to get to my 10-year thing, to make sure I'm working towards my just cause, right? So I'll take this giant unperceivable thing way out in the future, trying to keep ratcheting it closer to the point where I want to get to the most important thing, which is 1 quarter from now, which is about as far as I can really, because that's my following distance on this road, Christine. I don't want to be any closer than that, because I'm going to run into somebody, but I can look that far out and be pretty certain of where I'm going to go and how I'm going to get there. And that's kind of how we want to think about it. These rocks are about our quarterly goals, quarterly priorities that are going to step us towards this ultimate hard to predict thing way out in the future. So it's that developing that discipline of what I need to accomplish now to get to this other thing. That's going to help. That's not just a business. That's our whole lives, is being able to get to be better at predicting. So that's what we're trying to do here. Rocks are the big important things, and it's part of being able to go after these bigger goals and developing a discipline about getting there.
Yeah, and I love the context of having the quarterly plan, the rocks, in relation to all of that other vision content that's already on your VTO, and being able to look at it and relate back and say, yes, this is fulfilling our focus, our cause. Yeah. Call it.
Well, and I love that view that back in pre-license, where we have all those items lined up in the VTX, where it's like that is the cascade of planning that you have to go for. To rationalize how I'm going to get to this almost imperceivable horizon, I have to be able to line these things up, because that's how I'm going to say no to things I shouldn't be doing. Right, and that's really it. Okay, so moving on from that. So why create rocks? I've already said rocks help you rally around your priorities. So giving your whole organization focus. If I can name something that has to be done this quarter, and then I make it smart, which we'll get to. I can focus everyone's attention by saying, this is the most important thing this quarter, or these are the 3 to 5 things, more, less is more, to get everybody focused on that thing. Because when we all know what that is, we can all start making these tiny decisions on a regular basis to support that focus. Number 2, getting good at planning. I said it's really hard to plan. Planning is hard, but these are about figuring out what's my next step towards getting to this longer term goal. And that is a discipline that we have to create within ourselves, of being able to plan better and better, be more and more focused on that. And like I said, it's really about the discipline. So to bringing those long-term 10-year target, or 10-year goal, all the way down to what do I have to get accomplished this week? I mean, imagine the power of that. Being able to say, hey, someday I'm going to go to the Olympics, but today I just have to be able to run this many miles. This week, I have to do this many workouts to be able to be on track to getting to the Olympics. But that's what it takes. And you can do amazing things. Maybe you're not going to go to the Olympics. Christine, I'm not going to the Olympics.
I don't know. You could probably like really work hard at skeet shooting or something and still make it.
Fair enough. Yeah, well, there's a guy that was doing steeplechase or something like that, riding horses. He was 60 years old. So, but chances are I'm not going to the Olympics. But I still have great things I want to accomplish. And I know if I don't make progress on every day, every week by week, I'm not going to get there. So developing that discipline, and as our founder likes to say, disciplines are more powerful than goals. Developing a discipline to accomplish your goals are going to be valuable even if the goals change. Going back to that road model, Christine, so many of my clients, I called them up when we first started shutting down here in the States around COVID. I called them up and said, don't pretend this is temporary. This is the new context. Succeed in this context. If you're thinking about that road model, now you're driving in fog. You can't see that far. So just start making shorter term decisions. Your following distance is shorter. So we went to, half day monthly meetings and monthly rocks as opposed to quarterlies, because we don't know what's going to be that far out. So just plan for as far away as you can really predictably see and start accomplishing those things. You'll still make progress.
All right.
I get so excited about this. All right. So Christine, you've done this a million times. You know this as best as I do. So we set rocks every quarter. We set rocks at annual meetings, but it's really part of your first quarterly. So that annual meeting 2-day sequence is really an annual planning day and then another quarterly.
Right.
But like I said, sometimes we pull back and we make them about monthly, but it's about coming up that defined period of time beyond the 1 to 2 week to do window where I've got to coordinate some things. And so I'm setting them on a regular basis. And Christine, I can say the most powerful thing about rocks for me is when Chris or Mark say to me something really crazy, and I said, "Great idea. Add to the long-term issues list. We'll look at it at the quarterly." Right. So like all those crazy ideas that come up during the quarter that aren't about making this quarter successful, you put them on that long-term list, and they become the seeds for your rocks.
Yeah. So even today, I was talking to Steven and I was like, there's this idea, this campaign we can send out. We're going to put that on the long-term issues list because it's a big idea. We don't have time to go out and accomplish it right now, but it's a potential rock for a future quarter. So keep adding them there even right now.
It's so powerful to have those things there. Take them out of your head so they're not chewing up brain space. And once again, those new things, they go into the frontal lobe and chew up all kinds of energy. You need that creativity to accomplish the quarter. Get them out of your head, put them in the long-term issues list, and free it up for solving today's problems. And then you want to have a regular discipline, regardless of whether you're on EOS or some other system, because we know there's lots of other systems now using 90. You want to go back and look at all of those documents on a regular basis, recenter yourselves in those, especially when you're preparing for a quarterly, for an annual, and pull out of them questions or ideas that go into these things. So we walk everybody through. If you're on EOS, we walk you through, every quarter, or at least every year, your core values. Are these still your core values? Are we hiring and firing, recognizing and rewarding against these core values? And every time I ask the question, people come up, oh, you know what? We haven't done this. Yeah. Here's an idea. I was just talking to someone this morning at an event all about the changing nature of hiring in this environment. There's going to be new things we're going to do about making sure our core values live in our hiring processes now that it's so hard to get people. So review all those documents, accountability chart, anything else you got. Those are, thinking about those again are going to shake loose some possible rocks, and certainly the things you're trying to get accomplished quarter over quarter. I mean, that's really where, especially my younger teams, Christine, I take them through, like, let's not look at the VTO this quarter. Let's just focus on the 1-year plan and make sure. I'm not feeling great about this, guys. Let's make sure we're making progress on our 1-year plan by really making sure all of our rocks are about getting to our numbers and getting to our goals for the year.
Nice. And that's exactly what this last one is. So in that 1 year, it's like you're setting up what your revenue is, what your profit is, the key measurables. So you should have all of those decided and be working towards those.
Yeah. And I think as we go through some stuff, I think we want to go, once again, share your rocks with the state of the company. I love this because once again, it's about focus the entire company. So those company rocks need to be shared with everybody. And then you want the department rocks to support those. We'll talk about that more once after we look at the software. And I've got some great places that people screw up with their rocks that I'm going to talk about when we come back from going and look at it. But for anyone who haven't seen it, Christine, man, once again, the team's done great work at creating a great environment for rocks being successful.
Nice. All right. And so now we're going to jump into 90 for a little bit and go over some of those, where you're going to find a lot of those concepts that Jim just talked about. So talking about rock creation, we'll jump into the quarterly and annual sessions that you can run within the software too, and show you how you can wrap up last quarter and set rocks for the next one. So let's go into 90.
Yeah, you got to blow some people's minds with this because a lot of people miss this and they need this refresher, Christine. So
yeah. And so
there to be amazed.
In general, if you just have rocks to go in, add right now, it's really easy. Use the create button. It defaulted to a rock because I'm on this page, but you can switch it to a rock anytime. You'll always choose your owner, give it a quick title, and then this is usually where people go in and start making it smart and really defining it. So we're going to cover that topic of smart and milestones next. Usually your due date is going to be the date of your next quarterly meeting. So try and have that decided. That way all of your rocks can have that same due date. This is just defaulting to 90 days out. And then going in here, making it a company rock will automatically have it appear on your VTO. So anything that has that toggled on, so anything that's at the top of this list here, means that when we go to our VTO page and click on traction, we see all of those same rocks right here, and we can still go in and edit them right from this spot and click on them and see the details that we've added. So that's in general your rock creation, where you're going to find them in the software. You also see your own personal rocks on this My 90 page. So you have quick access to the ones that are specifically assigned to you as well.
And we're going to get back and talk about departmental rocks too, right? Another segment. Okay, good.
Definitely. The other thing I want to cover, since we did talk about how rocks are created and we mentioned the quarterly and the annual session, those are just two types of meetings that you can run. So when you come to the meetings page, quarterly and annual are right here, and they start and run the same way that a level 10 meeting does. So when I click start meeting here, it gives me my default agenda. And so you can see review prior quarter, that's number 3. You do get 2 extra buttons on here. So when you're wrapping up the quarter and reviewing your rocks, usually what you'll do first is just go through and check, hey, was this done or not done? So if it wasn't done, it's probably getting marked as off track. If it's done, great. Jim, I don't know if everybody does this, but I know for us internally, if it's just a to-do, there's just one last action item, that's a to-do, 7 days, we're counting it as done. So that's another thing to consider too.
Well, here's the thing, and we'll talk about this more. It's about agreements, right? Your rocks are not your rocks. If you're assigned the rock, if you have ownership of the rock, it's not about you getting it done. It's about you being accountable for its completeness, right? And the rocks, especially in a quarter, this is the leadership team's decision about whether that is done or not. And it is generally what I coach my clients to is, listen, if there's one to do away from having it done, and I'm going to make a to do out of it, and you can all hold that person accountable for getting that done, then we're already there. We don't need to, because let's be really frank. I mean, sometimes quarterlies land really on that day that they were supposed to be done. Sometimes they don't. We just had that, right, Christine, where we ended a quarter 2 weeks early because of vacation time and stuff. Fine. But it's really about if we all agree this is done. And sometimes the rocks aren't exactly done the way we thought they were going to be done. Once again, I was talking about 90 days ago. The world changed between now and then. That happens quite a bit. decide together whether we actually accomplish what we meant to accomplish, because sometimes not doing it is a good decision as doing it. So in all those instances, so it's give yourself, understand that there is no EOS heaven. There is no pure methodology here. It's about making good decisions as a team. And if you can come together and say, yeah, we consider this rock done. We're all satisfied that the work that was required and the answers that we needed were gotten to, we call it done. Or if there's more to be done here, I'm not comfortable with it, then you can leave it to hang over. Or you can just always just go into it. It's done, but I want a phase 2 rock that I want to look at. And you make it a long-term issue so you can then turn it back into a rock.
Exactly. So once you go through these and decide if they are actually done or not individually, so we usually open them up and verify, make sure, and then change the status. Once you see all of those, you're going to have some potentially that aren't done yet. And so that's where you can use this first button. You're cloning all of your incomplete rocks. So that means they have the status of on track or off track, and you're going to move them to the long-term issues list. So if you just click clone, it'll take all of these items. I'll go ahead and do it. And it's copying them. So we want to leave a record of the rock here, because what happens next is we actually want to look at the completion rate. So we want to know how we did, out of all of our rocks, how many did we get completed? Out of our company rocks, how did we get completed? So you get a percentage and a total number there when you just hover over this icon. And once you're done looking at this, you're thinking about the quarter as a whole. How did we do? You can see your revenue, profit, and measurable numbers if you just click this drop down. Once you're done doing that full quarter review, you can archive all of your rocks. So clicking this button will take all of them off the list and push them into your archive. So you're going to keep a record of the ones that are done and the ones that are not done. And then you have that option where when you go into your rock setting in section 6, we're looking at our full long-term issues list and we're deciding if those incomplete rocks are worthy of becoming rocks again. So from here,
are they still the most urgent and important things for us to go figure out? So, but all that record, and then, so this is the thing, look at all those things you can add to that rock while you're both making it smart and also while you're executing it. That is the record you're going to use to determine whether or not there's a phase 2, or whether if we got to skip a quarter and somebody else is going to have to take over this rock. They've got all that stuff in there. So gosh, take advantage of that, because that's one thing that's missing if you're using some other just random software to keep track of the name of rocks. This is actually a robust record of the work that went into that rock, the milestones, the attachments, listing all kinds of stuff. I mean, Christine, we've got amazing records inside some of our rocks of all the work that's been in there, and you can go in there and go really figure out what happened and what went right and what went wrong.
Exactly. And it's all searchable. So you can go back and look through everything and find the specific items that you're looking for. And so when you're setting up your next quarter rock, you're obviously considering all of those things. You're coming to the long-term issues list, so you have the full scope of all of the new things that might have been added during the quarter. And so as you want to create your new rocks, we usually just right click on these and then you can do create a rock. It'll pull in any details from that item. So if it's something, let's find, so this was an old rock, I can tell because it has the smart in there. So if you make this a rock again, it'll obviously re-pull in all those details that you already talked about. And once you go through and create your rocks, you can click on this tab over here to start going through those new ones, maybe initially doing some scope work on smart milestones, things like that, depending on how much time you have.
Yeah, and this is something I started doing with all my clients that are, especially if they're in that first year or so of EOSing, is going back through and spending and saving some time at the end to go pick a couple of rocks and really dig in on making them smart. And setting all of our milestones. It's not something we necessarily do in session, but as we go into that, it'll be an important part of how we approach this.
Yeah, and it helps give everybody some context if you go through it once, so that everybody else can take that to do and go off and do it on their own. And now we'll dive into a little bit more of what we're talking about when we're mentioning like smart and milestones. I've seen a couple questions about like what that really means. So now we're getting into like, all right, let's design what the rock is, and that's what we use
Right. And I think, you can find a lot of great coaching amongst the coaching community on building great rocks, but I want to make sure that you've got enough context so you can see the value of all the features inside 90. That's where I'm coming at this. So first of all, uh, this is not part of your standard work, part of your regular work. And once again, you have to agree on this as a team, but typically, we're talking about with the leadership team, 80% of your time should be spent on the things in your roles and responsibilities on the accountability chart. And those things should be tied out to measurables that relate to whether you're succeeding or not. And there's process at each of those things own. That's your regular work. That's your standard work. 20% of your time should be set aside for making the world a better place, really making the company a better place. And that's what rocks are all about, is advancing the cause. So it's not your everyday work. So if you're a salesperson, going out and achieving your sales goals isn't a rock, but figuring out a way to create a new campaign to go out and help make those things happen in the future, that is a rock. When we see with development organizations, quite often they're on sprints, right? They're in some form of agile, and they're going, oh, we don't need rocks because we've got agile. So no, agile is your work. Agile is the work of creating software. That's what you're doing every day. Being better at framing up your stories might be something you're doing, or adding a new role to the organization, or creating some other new structure that makes it easier. Going back and making issues lists faster, right, Christine? That could be a rock, as an example. So it's not part of your regular work. It is beyond your regular work. And as a leadership team, you might have one level of rock set aside. As you move down the organization, typically it's less and less, to the point where the people at the bottom of the accountability chart, chances are that they may not get rocks unless you're grooming them to move up in the organization. That's not regular work. That first bullet point, I went off. Does that sound right, Christine? Did I miss anything in that? It's important stuff, and it's a mind blower for a lot of people. Like, oh shoot, okay, rocks are. How do you make these better?
It's interesting too, because I like how you phrased it a couple quarters ago or something, but the outcome of the rock, it could be just like setting up a process. So like if you don't have a process around one of the things that is your regular work, like setting up the process could be a rock. So it
100%.
Like connected somehow, if it's like process oriented or anything like that.
But I need to make this sales process more efficient. I need to have better documentation about this. I mean, those are all great rocks because you're actually making the thing better. It's not about the thing actually happening on a day-to-day basis. So
right.
So let's talk about SMART: specific, measurable, achievable, realistic, timely. And I mean, there's a million different resources out there for making this, but you've got to make rocks SMART, because the most important thing, if you're going to get everyone to agree that this is the most important thing for you to focus on, and at the company level, these are the company's most important things. But at the personal level, this is really about the team that you're on. They all agree this is how we want to allocate that 20% or less of your time that is dedicated to rocks. So it's got to be smart for us to even understand what you're trying to accomplish. And then at the end of the quarter, be able to look at each other and go, did we actually get there? Right. And so specific, almost always there's got to be a number or a change of state about it. And measurable, it's like, how are we going to, asking the question, how are we going to know when it's done? Will we know when it's done? Yeah, we're going to know because we'll have this. Is it the right scope? And Christine, I know we've gotten really good at this at 90, is looking at something and challenging one of our other team members and saying, hey, that sounds like a 2-phase rock. What's the first phase of that? And there's 2 reasons for that. 1, because I don't want to give you a rock that you're going to fail at. And 2, because let's get to this place and determine whether it's still the most urgent, important thing. Right?
Exactly.
Because it happens all the time, especially if you've got A players, overachievers, they're going to want to go all the way. Oh, I got more what I want to do. I say, well, that's another phase, And when we review rocks from this quarter, you can say, hey, I've got other things in my notes here about other phases I might get to. Capture all that stuff, but just really focus on getting this part done. Like that notion of minimum viable product. Scope that within an inch of its life and be good at it and nail it, and then we can determine whether there's a rock behind it.
I think that realistic is so important for that reason. Cause it's like, you might be able to go off and accomplish this. This happens all the time for us internally, but it's like, hey, that's dependent on dev work or something that's outside of your control. They can't somebody else can't prioritize it this quarter. So like splitting it up into like what you can really do phase 1, phase 2 for different quarters. And just really thinking about it being realistic from like all the team members that are going to be involved in accomplishing it perspective is definitely smart.
Right. And because the focus is the most important thing. I mean, it's just, if you get smaller rocks done with greater regularity if I had to boil it down into one phrase, scope your rocks smaller, be really clear on them, document them well, and get them done, and you'll keep making progress. Right. If you shoot for the moon every time, you're going to get halfway there. It's not the same kind of accomplishment, and you're not going to learn as much. Because I ask all my clients, like when we review rocks, what did you learn from this rock? Let's lock it in. Let's own it. So, and then timely, that's about being, making sure you're living in the urgent and important, and asking yourself the question, what if we didn't get this done this quarter? Because you have to admit, like if we just keep piling on rocks, Christine, we've seen this happen, in many clients are just like, no, you don't get all those rocks. I just heard a story. One of the other implementers in town here, this company set up four company rocks, and he said, "Those are great rocks. Take one off." But they at the end of the session, they were all like, "That was a great call, man," because now we had to rationalize exactly what the 3 most important things were, and we all got comfortable with, one of these things just can't get done this quarter. That was a Ron Kaminsky client. So good call out. Core values call out to Ron Kaminsky being a great coach.
Yeah, I think it's good to have those healthy debates and conversations, and I think almost every single one of these really goes into why milestones are so important, because it helps you actually define each one of those smart items. I mean, especially the timely, because you're putting a literal date on something.
Yeah.
But the milestones are really like those subtasks, the things that you're saying along the way. Here's what I'm going to do to make sure I actually reach whatever that end goal is.
And here's the thing, the exercise of creating milestones always informs your understanding of scope. I mean, as much as I can say, we're agrarian minded, we can think about next quarter, you still suck at it until you're good at it. So accept the fact that you need to get better and better at it until you can be really reliable at what you need to get done this quarter. And something's going to come up and it's going to get in your way. And just the more you can put these milestones in here, 1, the rest of the team can understand whether you're actually getting it done or not. 2, you can better understand the scope, and you start putting dates against those things, like going, oh, wait, this is a more reasonable scope to get to that thing. And 3, you're going to be able to say, open and honest at an L10, hey, I'm off track. I'm 2 milestones behind. I don't know how I'm going to get these done. And you know what? If it's a company rock, the right thing for everyone to happen is, how can we help? Not, why aren't you getting them done? That's not healthy accountability, right, Christine? Healthy accountability is, how do we get this done? We've said this is the most important thing for the company. Is it still the most important thing for us to get done? If so, how are we all going to rally to make this happen? Right? And we've had great examples of this. I started calling it ringing the bell. When someone, if on a company rock, someone rings the bell and says, it's not going to get done, we all go down to the town square. We figure out how to protect the rock. Because if we're agreed this is still the most important thing, let's do everything we can. Because that's smart accountability. That is healthy accountability.
And I think in general, everyone's optimistic. So if you end up creating a rock that is not smart and there's no milestones, I think everyone's just going to be like, I'm on track, don't worry about it. And then you're going to be either at your quarterly or 2 weeks before, like, ooh, I don't think I'm going to get any of this done. So
you don't need to learn this again. I mean, if you don't have these, if you don't take the time to make the rock smart, if you don't set up milestones for yourself, you will inevitably have people that get to the end of the quarter, 2 weeks out, 1 week out, and going, oh, I don't think it's really done. I'm off track. And that is a failure of everybody on the team if you allow that to happen. That is not just the one person. All of you let that happen. And I've berated my teams. They can tell you, some of them are maybe on the call, will tell you, Jim Haviland will throw the chair when that happens. If it's a company rock and all of you let this go off track, 2 weeks to go, you all failed each other on that. That's not how we love each other in this organization. We do it by helping each other stay on track.
All right. So let me show you a bit of this in 90 then. So making rocks smart, let's see, and milestones. So in here, like we kind of alluded to earlier, a lot of times you will pick a rock to, I don't know, however many you have time to go through and go through that practice together, especially if it's your first time doing it. That way you're really defining it. So you can put SMART in here and actually write it out. You could write what the end goal is. However you need to define it, I would put the details in here right away, just in the rich text editor, and then you can start creating your milestones. So to set up milestones first, if you don't see this plus sign, you do have to turn it on. So come up here to the settings button, and then just toggle on show rocks on milestones. You do have the option where throughout the quarter, as these due dates come up, if something isn't done 7 days before it's due, you can have this toggled on to hit your to-do list automatically. So if you'd like that, leave that on. If you don't, just turn it off. Either way, totally fine. And then as you—
But Jim Haviland, as your coach for the day, says turn them both on right now.
Especially if you don't like actually click in and look at your rock during every meeting, it's like then you're—
Because you don't.
Yeah.
Because you don't, and until you're great at this, until you're performing at 80% every quarter, and 80% is the bar, 80% of your rocks done, and I beat up on my teams if they're not getting 90% of their company rocks done over the year. Until you're there, until you're super solid, take advantage of these tools to help you stay on track. It's there to support you. It isn't there to nag you. It's there to support you and let you know when you're off track.
Yeah.
Because you will go off track.
So I did just see Aaron's question too of the difference between milestones and to-dos. So you still have your running to-do list during the meeting, you're creating them from issues, they're coming up in your weekly level 10s. Your milestones are just the things that you're setting up. They're almost like your subtasks, your to-dos that are attached to that rock, because you're saying throughout the quarter, here's the individual things that I'm going to get done in order to get this done. So if we need to create Facebook or Google ad launch, maybe the first thing is we need to draft some ads. And then, so we want to get that done a month from now. And then maybe the next thing is approval of those ads. And maybe to get approval, we're going to assign that to Blake. And we'll give him an extra week to get approval on those. So these could become to-dos, because if Michael doesn't have this done by 9/4, we want it to hit the to-do list so that there's more awareness around that item. But for right now, it's just going to live here. It doesn't need to go to the to-do list yet because, it's so far out. It's a month away. We don't need it to clutter the to-do list.
And I tell, but early on, I give my clients a hard time if they're not give me 13 items as milestones, 1 a week. Just so it's never going to catch up on you. You're never going to suddenly have to spend 3 days on your rock every week, because there's going to be things that you suddenly realize, I can't get that done this week. It's going to have to wait till next week. It will happen every quarter, I promise you. So give yourself 13 little reminders that you need to be making progress. You're going to change you're going to be wrong about the order they have to come in, and you just take the hit, and you'll get better and better at predicting these things. But start with 13 weeks of reminders of what needs to get done. And when you're great at it, maybe you don't need any at all. But for right now, I promise you, it'll make you better at setting your rocks.
Exactly. And I think if you're setting up a milestone every single week, it's not like you need to have a deliverable every single week in project management terms. I just saw that come through. So don't feel like I have to think of something or make something up that's going to make sense to have as a deliverable every single week. It can just be progression steps along the process. So getting revisions back. Like, I don't know if that's really deliverable. It's just something we know we've got to get it done. Let's put a due date on it so that we're being held accountable and know if we're getting too far off track with it.
Yeah, because it comes up as a to-do, and in your in your L10 meeting, you can turn it into an issue. It's like, hey guys, I'm not gonna get this rock done if I don't get this revisions back. You know, and we can get to have that conversation. It's that check-in that makes it easier to have healthy accountability on your team. So it's just a tool for getting to that healthy accountability. And once again, if you've got milestones, it's also easier as you get off track to say, hey, can we look at this together as a team and figure out, can someone else take that step? What's in that step? And you can put all the detail you want in there. Look, there's a place to put attachments. So even if you get abducted by aliens or win the lottery, there's a place for you to put all the documentation in there. If you're linking out to Google Docs of some sort, or you've got other things, put them all in there. So if someone else has to pick up that rock and take it down to the goal line, you know, they've got everything they need to be successful. And you will too. Even if you fail at the rock, you'll have all the documentation there. Whenever it comes back up and it becomes important again, you won't have to go, hey, what was that thing about the thing we were doing? Do you remember it? No, you don't remember, I promise. We don't need to learn that again. We know this is a better place to keep it all together, because that's when you're going to consider it.
Exactly. And so when you're in your quarterly meeting, so you're going through your rock section here, you're going through this process for a few rocks, up to you with how many, you know,
Right.
1 to 3 maybe. And then once you're done, it's already showing up, if you've created milestones, on other people's My 90 page and on their to-do lists and rocks pages and wherever they're going to see that. So if I actually jump out of this meeting, click suspend. If I go to my My 90 page, I did just create those drafts, some ads, revisions. I just created those 2 milestones and I'm already seeing them here. So you don't have to own the rock to see the milestones on this list. So remember, somebody else can own the rock as a whole. I'll click back on one of these. I own this rock, but John is going to see this milestone on his My 90 page, and same thing with Cooper and Chris. So they do have the awareness around it. And the really nice thing, so maybe I just want to filter for my incomplete ones. I don't need to see my completed. I can either click on this to see the milestone, so if I've got any details in there, or I can click on the rocks icon so that I can see this milestone as it relates to the rock as a whole. So if I don't own the rock specifically, it still gives me the visibility of what the milestone is. Mike owns this item, but I can see where I fit into getting this rock done. So
it is so sweet. It is so sweet. I mean, it's just...
If I could bump in real quick, you might have already mentioned it, but just to clarify for everybody, can you show them how to turn on milestones?
I knew that was going to come up.
Okay.
Yeah, that's a great one.
Yes. So I'm on the rocks page right now.
You're on the rocks page.
There's a gear icon at the top right. If you don't see this, you might not be a manager role or above. So you might need to go to your directory and request somebody where you see manager, owner, or admin to turn this on. But go ahead and click on that, and then you've got both of these to go ahead and toggle on.
And Jim says turn them both on. But
both
and this is a general thing, by the way, that there are features inside 90 that are not necessarily pure EOS that are available through that gear icon on other pages as well. So feel free to explore that icon whenever you see it pop up, because there's some magic in that.
Yeah. Let's see. And then the one other question I see about milestones is, can I get reminders on them? And one thing I would encourage you guys to do, I don't know why I just clicked back on the My 90 page. You don't need to be there. But click on your person icon in the top right, and you do have a user settings button. So if you select that, you can actually set up email notifications that get sent out daily. So that'll include to-dos, rocks, milestones, so those items that you're immediately responsible for, and then just choose the day and time that you want to receive those. So it'll tell you items that are upcoming, and then ones that are past due, ones that are due today. It'll give you all that sort of feedback, whatever days you choose there.
Yeah, that is so great.
All right.
All right. Yeah. So the couple of questions coming up about reviewing rocks, and this is tremendously important because once again, I put an orange down there at the bottom. Disciplines are more powerful than goals. Turn expectations into agreements. My two favorite Mark Abbott isms. Every week when you're reviewing your rocks, you go into that level 10 meeting, whatever level 10 meetings you're on, you will see your rocks and you'll see the department rocks there, company rocks, depending on which meeting it is. And you're trying to set your up to make progress every week against these things. That's why we're setting all these milestones in there. But you're going to have to get better and better at being honest about making your progress on your rock. If you haven't touched it, that's not great. So set yourself some time right now before your L10 every week. Put it on your calendar every week as prepare for your L10. That's when you're going to go back and review your rocks, review your to-dos, make sure you're good. Give yourself a day or two before the L10 is my suggestion. It's also not a bad thing to start thinking about how you're going to open that meeting. But what your shares are going to be there, because you want to be mindful about all your meetings. One of the reasons I asked the question at the top of the meeting, what are your biggest problems or nagging questions with rocks? Because I want you're going to get more out of your meetings the more mindful and direct you can be about what you want out of a meeting. And what we all know about level 10 meetings is they're very consistent. We want to get a clear picture about what are the issues facing the company right now. That's why rock review is only 5 minutes, because you're supposed to be on track, off track. And it's not just for you to say your rock is off track. What you want in a really healthy team where there's healthy conflict, they will call each other out on their rocks. Say, hey, you're really making progress on that? Look, you got a couple of to-dos. Are you sure? Can anyone help you with that? I mean, because we're all in charge, especially with the company rocks or the department rocks, we're all on the hook to getting those done. All of us are supposed to jump in and make sure those things happen. So don't feel bashful about asking, how's that rock going? And if there's something to talk about, if it's great, then it's just on track. Don't worry about it, man. We'll bring it up if everything goes wrong. It's like, because challenge you a little bit, and you know what, let's drop it to the bottom. I'll give you my update about where it is and what's going on. Because we do that all the time, right, Christine? We're just going to be, I just need 2 minutes, but 2 minutes is more than I'm going to give you in the reporting part of the L10. Drop it to the bottom, get clarity on it. Rocks should be things you talk about that day for sure, because of the most important priorities for the quarter. We already established that. So, but just make sure you're spending that time, and we're still going to prioritize at the bottom and make sure you're talking about all the right things. But not when we ask rock review. That's just for scraping out the opportunity to say, anything to report there? Yeah, I got a couple of things. Let's drop it to the bottom. Because that could be a change in scope. Christine, we see this all the time, right? Like, hey, we got 50% into this and realized that what's really important is this, not this. I'm going to lop off this stuff, make it a phase 2 rock. I'm going to focus on getting this done and doing it done well. Gosh, that's my favorite story ever when I hear that.
Yeah, and I think it's important, like that aspect of challenging each other on, well, it's not necessarily a challenge, but you're really just looking for insight. Like, is that person really doing okay with theirs? Because especially at the leadership level, everyone has their own functional level of expertise in the business. And so if you see something that's a dependency that's going to get held up, whatever it is, like that's your time to jump in and say, I think that's an issue. Let's drop it down. So I wouldn't don't feel like you're stepping on somebody's toes. Everybody agreed that those are the most important things and you're getting them done as a team, even though there is one owner.
That's right. When you're in that L10 meeting, it's just like being at the quarterly. You're no longer represent your functional part of the business. You are on the leadership team. You're on the team 1 at that point. That is your first team, and you've got to make sure that team is running well. That is everyone's job.
Yeah. All right. So level 10's quick 5-minute segment. So you're really just doing on track, off track, done, and popping stuff down to the issues list if it needs to be discussed in that way.
If you aren't reaching your 80% number every quarter, then you better be talking about your rocks, as often as possible. Don't let them get off track. If you're even concerned about it and you want to bring it up with your team, have your team support you. Drop it to the bottom. Don't make the mistake of saying, well, I'm just going to tough myself through it. That is failure.
All right.
Is that harsh to say it that way? I'm sorry.
I mean, it's honest. I would have.
I'm a hard ass coach sometimes, man. My teams know. All my teams know. Jim will throw the chair when he thinks it's appropriate.
Yeah, so let's go to 90. I think we already talked about the My 90 page. And then the other thing I just wanted to touch on was the weekly meeting as well. So I'm just going to go in and start a level 10 really quick, just so you guys can see it in action. Obviously, it works the same way if you're on the normal rocks page or in a quarterly or anything like that. But when we're talking about the on track, off track, done, all you need to do is click the status here and update it accordingly. If you have time or are able to, just click on the rock, double check that the milestone's on track, and then move on to the next one. That's probably a great practice to get into, especially if they're all built out. Don't review the whole rock. Don't give a status update. Just make sure the milestones are on track. Yeah. And then if something is not on track, if there's a call out on the team, if there's anything that needs to be discussed, right click on it, make it an issue, or you can create it issue, but it's at least going to pull in all of the details that you've already put into the rock, including all of the milestone information. So it's really easy. Once you've got this issue created, you have all of the context already in there.
Yeah, and a great kind of like loving way to check up on a rock that you don't own is to when you're doing rock review, say, hey, would you click on that one? And so we're all looking at it right away. And so you don't have to be the one to say it. The person that's actually owns a rock, if there's something really off track, they're going to go, yeah, we should probably talk about this, right? Because that's really what you want. What you want isn't to hold to put your finger on somebody. It's really more about, let's scrape all the issues out of everything that's going on here and give everyone a really great opportunity to say, yeah, listen, we got to talk about this, or I need some help with this, or you know what, I think I got a better idea about how to get this done. And make sure it lands on your issues list so you're taking it in due course.
So all I did again was right click to get to that make it an issue button. And then if there are comments, if there are attachments, you have the opportunity to copy those over as well. Need to put this on a team and give it to a person. Then I can save it. And then the other way to do that too is just using this more actions button. So if you want to make it an issue, you get the same kind of drop down menu as you do when you right click on the item over there.
Yeah, and I want to overemphasize the reality that having a record of all the work that goes into these things, by every week putting stuff inside your rocks that give you people an update, is a great way to keep you clear. Right, you're not going to do a report, but if you can type a couple of words in there about what got accomplished, what didn't get accomplished, or why things are the way they are, you're going to have a great record to be able to figure out how to run your company better over time.
Definitely. So my 90 page during the week, just like you're checking off to-dos, if you're checking off milestones, if you're just writing a comment about something that happened or some work that got done, at least to Jim's point, you have a record of it, you know where you stand. Anybody can jump in and understand how they can contribute, especially if you've got milestones delegated out.
Yeah.
All right. So I think, yeah, so the last thing I had was just some of the common feature requests that I'm getting. So I just want to talk through these 3 things mainly. I know there's probably more on your list. So happy to discuss anything else that comes up that you guys would see as a feature request. But first one up here is just always the completion rate, the due dates, having everything always visible. Right now, you have to go and hover over the icon to see the breakdown of number of rocks done and your completion rate and things like that. So making that more apparent for people by just giving them what the Q3 due date is, because usually all your rocks are due at the same time, and understand the completion rate real time is a big one. So I definitely have that on the list. The other one is rocks can be on multiple teams. I'm not sure I showed that quite yet, but there is an add to other teams button. And right now, if the rock is a company rock and then you put it on a team, it automatically becomes a departmental rock on that team. And I know some people are looking for a bit more flexibility, especially when it goes the other way. Company to department probably makes sense. But then if there's a departmental rock, but it's not necessarily a company rock, going that way, people want to be able to pick and choose whether it is company or departmental on each team. and then also not restricted to if the person's on that team. So creating more of an open list like this where you can pick and choose where that should be visible just based on the stakeholders that you want to be able to see that, and then toggle on and off if it's company or departmental. So giving that visibility on the VTO is something I've heard. And then revamping the milestones. Right now, like you saw, you can go in, add one, great, but getting to the details of it, changing the due date, all those little things, I feel like could use a little bit more refinement. So we just grabbed a UI UX designer. This is a very first version of something he put together. So none of this is set in stone, but it's just kind of some initial mock-ups and things that we're thinking about, just so that like easier editing of the milestones, easier changing of due dates, things like that is definitely important to us.
Yeah, I mean, we should probably look at that in the software quick, Christine, because it is a place of opportunity for our designer.
Yeah. So a couple things I just talked about are here. So adding to other teams, you can see I can't add it to a team I'm not on. So definitely want to give the ability to open that back up. And then the milestones are listed here. So if I want to go in and edit, I click on the edit button and then it opens up all of them. So I can go in and add the description and the title or change the due date. And when you change the due date, so if I put this before June 4th, it'll change the order for me there you go. So as soon as that saves, then it goes into the correct order. So it's all based on due date.
That's so smart. I love that.
So right now there's no ability to track, is this in progress? So we kind of put those chip markers in there just for interest in terms of do you want to see if something's past due easier? Little things like that as visual reminders. So when you do click on the rock, it's really easy to see if something is past due. So it draws your eye there and you just turn it into an issue right away.
Yeah. And we still have the save icon, looks like an old floppy disk. So
yes, which is not used anywhere else. So why is it there? We have no idea, but we are where we are and we will improve.
We will improve. Yeah. I think it's quaint.
Yes. Great. So I know there might be some questions about that stuff in particular. I don't have too many more details, but happy to speak to anything specifically. And then I definitely want to jump into IDS. So I'm sure there's been more questions coming through. Feel free to keep posting them in that chat area. Stephen's going to be adding them to the issues list and 90, and we can just go through and tackle those one by one.
He's been doing a great job. Great job, Stephen, for answering some of these questions too. I appreciate that. But yeah, keep if you're not happy with your answer, raise your hand and let us know. Because we want to get this resolved, because it's a powerful part of both the software and also the operating system. So we'll do everything we can to make sure that all the questions get answered.
Nice.
How many? We only have 27. That's not bad.
Yeah, it's pretty good.
We can do that.
All right. Looks like there might be some more coming in, so I'm sure we'll add some more in here as we're going.
There are also some where I put multiple into the same same issue, and you'll just see it separated out by a line.
You did some keep, kill, and combine.
I kind of combined some of them for you already.
Perfect.
Enjoy.
But Christine wanted to show me the combining issues feature.
I know.
Oh, true. They're actually probably still going to be a good one to do that.
Okay.
I can't remember which one though.
All right. Well, let's start knocking them down.
Probably something with milestones. There's a lot of milestones questions. Milestone was a hot topic.
It's so good. It's a great one.
Oh, I found a good one. Who smartens rocks and making rocks smart? Let's merge those two. How about that?
Okay, great.
Okay, so this is something we just released, so that's why I was very excited about using it. But if you have issues on the list that are very similar, you can either use the more actions button here, or you can right click on it. So right click, merge into another issue, and then it opens up the list. So you can see it just grayed out that current one. And then as I put my cursor over it, it changes the symbol. So I'll just go ahead and click on this one. And then it just makes you verify, yes, I want to merge them together. And then we've got one rock or one issue right here together where it put the two.
That is so yeah. So we can let go. One more thing the whiteboard isn't superior on. I love that because I can't write that fast.
Yeah. Let's see, but this is a good one to start with. find it difficult to define a short rock title.
Okay, first line, determining scope and setting people up for success. Rocks giving the time allowed. Yeah, so here's what I've been doing as a coach is I recognize these problems for people. One, you'll get better and better at creating smart rocks. It'll become a more natural part of what you do. So be gentle with each other. Two, you should at least be able to look at each other by the end of the quarterly and know that each of the rocks, you've got a general idea of what it means, right? So you don't have to spend countless hours smartening it up all the way in the quarterly, but at least get it to the point where I have no idea, you're beyond the I have no idea what that means stage. You don't let any of that go. So keep going until you got that. Like when I've been coaching sessions most recently, I typically pick one or two critical rocks, and I try to set some time aside after the rest of IDS. Let's go back and smarten up one or two of these rocks. And what that typically means is we'll define SMART, right? Let's make sure we're all good on that and take some notes on each of those things. Let's add some more notes. And I'm basically, and Christine, I say you do this as well. As we're talking about it, I'm typing notes in the description the entire time.
Right.
Just keep typing. Just everything that people bring up, bring them in, because you don't want that to go away. You don't want those thoughts to go away. So just keep typing in here. And then, like, I will force them to, like, give me 5 things that we have to get done towards getting this rock done. So just to create that thought process of creating your milestones. Right. So it goes over, it becomes a rock. And now we have to create some of those milestones. And just one of those rocks puts us all back, reminds us what about setting milestones. And then you have to go and what you're supposed to do. The last thing I do is I create a to-do for everyone on the team to smarten up your rocks. And you have to present that rock back at the next L10 meeting. Or if there's a lot of rocks, then you're going to have other sessions about that. But getting your rocks right is worth the extra time. So with some of my clients, I've now gone to a place where I end up spending an extra hour on another day helping them smarten up a couple of rocks, because it's worth it to me for them to make sure they get it done right, for them to feel confident about it. It's not, there is no EOS heaven. Doing it right isn't as important as making it effective for you. So, and confidence is part of that.
I think that's exactly right. Like when you're in your session, pick those 2 to 3 like so critical company or departmental rocks, and even just like type out these questions or copy and paste them into the rock. So you're probably typing things in while you're defining it. Like Jim said, we're usually taking notes the whole time we're talking, but then spend some dedicated time of answering those questions and then just defining, like, here, like you said, here's the 5 things I think we need to get done. So that it's the whole team is smartening the rock together, and then everybody's taking the to-do. So maybe it's a week, maybe it's 2 weeks. Then you're coming back, and maybe if you're at the leadership level, you meet with the integrator and say, are these rocks smart? Or you meet with whoever that manager is at the departmental level. And
take it seriously. And just say, if you can't actually participate in helping determine whether this rock is done or not, then you're not doing your job on the leadership team or whatever team that's on. That is your role in these moments, is to be super clear about, can I help hold this person accountable, kind of hold this team accountable for getting this stuff done. So hopefully that helps.
Yes. Let us know.
Type more in the description. If I had to just type all the time, capture everything as it goes by.
Titling rocks kind of follows the same line. So sometimes they get stuck on creating the actual title.
Yeah, there's some people that have some sense that there's a notion of purity about how long the title should be. I'm not there, Christine. Obviously, how many characters can you put in the title of the rock?
As many as you'd like.
Yeah. So obviously, if it takes you a long time to say it, I don't believe that you understand it. So, Sergey was on here. He's been teaching. What has he been teaching? So I think it just has to be clear, and it has to be clear to everybody in as brief a way as possible, that whether it's, what done looks like, right? So
Because it will be defined in the description, so you have that for extra context, but as long as everybody can read the sentence that describes what it is, then and everybody understands what it means, then, it's probably good, right?
Yeah, so this is, Sergio, this is great stuff, Sergio. Thank you for this. Use the past participle format, meaning the rock title should describe the state of the world once the rock got done. Instead of complete the implementation of 90.io throughout the company, which is a great rock to have, by the way, write it as 90 used in all L10s as a means, by all 10s inside the org. That's a great way to look at it. So that way it's super clear to everyone what the world looks like when it's done. Thanks for that, Sergio. But once again, that's not a short statement, but it's a clear statement, and clarity and agreement are really what you're trying to get to, in my humble opinion, and evidently Sergio too. For those of you in New York, if you want looking for a great coach in the New York area, he's a good guy.
Is he in the chat, or did you just see that on his website?
No, I saw it in the chat.
Oh, okay, nice. I love that. Thanks for posting.
Yeah.
Let's see, prioritizing rocks.
I hope you got your 90 hat, man.
Yeah.
I owed him a hat for a long time. I feel bad.
That rocks and realize there's something more critical to work on. Oh, that is a great one. So mid-quarter, something comes up and priorities change.
Yeah.
Yeah, speak to that a little bit.
So there are coaches out there. I know there are, and I love them. Some of them are very good people. The best people, but they will tell you can't change your rocks mid-quarter, that you're stuck with your rock. Suck it up, cupcake. You've got it. You're going to fail on this rock. Jim Haviland doesn't teach that way. I think I polled the rest of the folks that work at 90 that are coaches, how they teach. One thing I'll say again and again, there is no EOS heaven. What there is running a great company. So if you get midway through your rock and you realize it's the wrong rock, there's nothing wrong with saying, hey, we've gotten to our second best answer, which is this is a bad idea, or I need to change the scope on this rock to accomplish the thing we want to accomplish. If you use the past participle format, you probably have a better idea of what done looks like, but you don't get to decide yourself. You take it to your team. That team, I'm 6 weeks into this. This is what I understand about the current world and what's really most important right now. This is what I think we should do next. On a macro scale, when we went back in March 2020, I took all my clients through that same exercise. You had quarterly rock for some date in the future. We got no idea what the world looks like by then. So what's most important about this rock? Is it still matter? Is it still important? And if so, what's the scope that you're going to get accomplished by the end of the month? And that is a mature way to handle it, that you're going to actually keep moving forward. And that's what I prefer. It's just keep moving forward. There's no reason to give yourself oh, look, I'm standing on the train tracks. I'm 6 weeks away from the train hitting me, but I'm not going to move.
Yeah. And I think even it's funny looking back at our last quarter, because I considered it that we didn't get some key things done a success because we prioritized the one company rock above everything else. We made sure we got it done. And
that's the right choice. That is the right choice. It's like, hey, you let this one slide to take care of this, because we agreed as a team that was the most important thing. That is victory without question.
And it meant other things that we thought were important didn't get done, but we knew that the one thing was much more critical. So,
discipline and prioritizing as a team is the best.
Yeah. So main thing is agreement from your team on that, chat with the coach if you need help for sure too.
Hey, Stephen, we have to get Sergio a new hat. He's evidently his is now well worn. He needs a fresh one. I give that to you as did you do.
All right, project management and rocks. I equate the initiatives, projects need better project management visibility, like to scope deliverables, other.
Okay, here's the thing about rocks, and obviously, if you look at our approach to rocks, it is the 101 version of project management, right? it is the level of project management we think is appropriate for everyone everyone in the company should have this kind of level of project management capability. And so it's simplified versus having a Gantt chart for the entire thing with lots of gates and all this kind of stuff. If you've got a project that scope, then project management software is appropriate for you, and a project manager on it is appropriate. But everyone should have the ability to at least make progress. And that's what the design of rocks, and that's what part of what Gino really did a great job of, is figuring out what's the thing that everybody can do that actually advances the cause. And that's what the difference between rocks and projects.
Yeah, and I
You have
think
an opinion on that?
I think that's absolutely right. And a great thing to consider when you're using 90 with this and thinking about like, this project is going to be longer than 90 days, like use the phase 1, phase 2 approach. So we have that internally where we do have this bigger goal and we know what can we get done in 90 days. So that's just setting ourselves up for success in the next 90-day period. And even though our item is not done yet, it's a bigger project. It's either hitting our VTO 1-year goals for the year here. So maybe multiple rocks are comprising a single goal there. Or you just have a rock where it's big board 1, phase 2, phase 3, and you have multiple phases of that over the course of a couple quarters. So,
well, and that's the thing. So you can, I mean, it's a great thing to do. And I've done it with my clients. We've done it inside 90, where we've looked at a 1-year goal and we've broken it right away into phased issues. Mm-hmm. Right. And we're going to keep taking notes on those and making those smarter up to the point where it becomes a rock. And then we're still going to keep doing the same thing. So, like I say, there is no EOS heaven, I mean, but there's certainly just running a better company, and where using these different tool sets is the best you can possibly hope for.
Definitely. And if you do have a project where it's like, all right, you need the visibility, multiple teams need to have visibility, use that add to other teams option and assigning milestones out, and a couple of things like that might help you get there as well.
Yeah, but phase rocks, genius, great way to go. And like I said, if you're 6 weeks in and realize, hey, this rock is too big for this quarter, I need to break it into 2 phases, get everyone's agreement, and then go, man, go.
And this one, super simple. Rocks are kind of what we've been talking about, those bigger goals that you set at the beginning of the quarter. It's not one thing that you can just get done like that. It's multiple iterations of work need to happen, probably multiple team members, and it's what your team has defined as like, this is a very important thing to get done, whereas the milestones are just subtasks. So just the little things that help you work towards that bigger goal.
Milestones are to-do size.
But
they don't have to be. I mean, like to Christine's earlier point, which is a great one, is just it could be just a note about, I should be to about this place by this time. There's no deliverable, but so I'm thinking through it, and I've thought through how I got to divide my work, attention, and time over the quarter. That's all I'm coaching my clients to with setting milestones.
Nice. And this is a good one. So determining if something is really a rock versus what you described as just their everyday task.
Yeah. And it's a great question. And it's something, I mean, there's definitely stuff. It's a Venn diagram, right? There's things that are purely your everyday work. And there's things that are like, clearly I'm going out, I'm building a brand new house, right? So, and those things are different, but there is stuff in the middle, like what Christine was talking about, where, hey, I'm running a sales team. We already have a set of sales goals for the quarter. Achieving the sales goals isn't a rock, but improving the onboarding of new clients so that we actually capture more revenue in that first quarter, that's a great rock. Like, let's make that part more successful. That'll have an impact on my ability to achieve my sales goals. And typically, if it's something that you can do once and then it's going to become a process, it's clearly that's a good rock. Like my first time I'm going out and trying to figure out what those steps are, documenting it, getting to the place where I can actually get it followed by all. That is a great rock. I mean, everybody has an opportunity, and that's one of the things I described especially when you start cascading rocks down to the rest of the organization. Everybody that's got multiple people reporting to them probably can think of a better way of coordinating their efforts, and can every quarter think of one thing to make better, to make that whole experience better for those folks. So, hey, it doesn't have to be a giant rock. You just be like, hey, this thing is really out of date. If it was more like this, it was available in these formats, it'd be better. Great. That's a rock. That's your rock. And then how will I know when it's done? When everyone recognizes it, knows where to find it, you can determine that. But making this net better at, designing it could be phase 1 too, and phase 2 could be implementation. That's a really common one for us at 90, because we recognize that those two things have such different dependencies that you kind of want to break them apart. Let's get the design done, and then next quarter I'm going to come back and actually implement.
Yeah, I love that idea, that thinking that if you're not doing it as a part of your day-to-day work now, and it's your first time, like it should be on your accountability chart, roles and responsibilities, but it's not, I have had a ton of rocks that are like that. I've got to set up the client success scorecard for this first time. Would I love for that to be a to-do? Yeah, but I've got to get with data. I've got to train people on how to use it. I've got to do a lot of things in order to get the scorecard set up and people running with it. Or Stephen knows, a marketing campaign. Like, we have this idea, we want to launch it for the first time. Eventually it's going to be a part of somebody's day-to-day job where they're checking in on that. And that's not going to be a continuous rock, but we got to set it up the first time, and it's going to be a little bit more effort. So it'll be a rock for a quarter.
Yeah. I mean, invariably you've got people further down the accountability chart that aren't really in the world where they can actually design a new process. So that's going to be your rock. You're going to design a new process to make them more efficient. They're going to love you for it. And then unless you're trying to make it so, hey, I see a lot of potential in you, I'm going to give you this rock to make that whole thing better. And that's part of how I'm going to get you to the place where I'm helping leaders build leaders, build leaders.
Yeah. This one I actually saw come through the Q&A. I thought it was a really, really interesting idea. So instead of just having one set of, milestones on your rock, being able to kind of have the indents and the subtasks where there's a bigger item and then multiple things to get that accomplished. So can definitely talk to the team about what it would look like to implement something like that if we should. Yeah,
I mean, because there is this in between space between rocks and project management that we want to be. Yeah, it has to be simple enough that everyone can use this tool well. So but it's a great thought that maybe there's a step up we can put in there. We're always curious about what the 202 and the 303 tool look like, right?
Yeah. Yeah, and then even not sorting it by due date, and doing it by level of importance. That's something I never really would have thought of. But
oh yeah, it's a great one.
Yeah, really, really interesting idea. So
thanks for that.
Yeah. Follow through with rocks. Yes. So we've got the optimistic team that likes to say that they're on track until the last 2 weeks of the quarter.
Yeah, you gotta break them.
Yes. So milestones help with that, because then you can call out earlier.
Yeah. So this is one of those issues where I'm not actually an angry person, but I do actually go through my whole throwing the chair routine with my teams when I recognize they're being too optimistic and nice to each other. And I give them a speech about, that's not how we love each other in this organization, is it? We got to take care of each other moving forward. That's what really works. If we're leaders in this organization, we have to keep making progress. Being optimistic and cheerful in our level 10 meetings is not helpful. That is actually mean. It is passive aggressive to not tell the truth to my team members when you're all depending on each other to get the work done. So I will shame them. Maybe that's not great, but it's what I do. But milestone. But then I will come back with, we're going to pick a couple of your rocks. We're going to build all your milestones out so you can hold each other accountable. If you get 2 or 3 out, and I'll watch them. One of the great things about being a coach on 90 is I can watch their rocks this next quarter. If they get 2 or 3 milestones back, I'm going, your rock's off track, my friend. I just set it off track.
Yeah.
So you better IDS this. You better figure out how to get it back on track, because you said it was a company rock. And I think you don't have to be mean about it. You have to throw the chair, but you do have to start getting to the place where it's not okay to say that our culture is we don't hold each other accountable, and it's each other accountable to the goal, not to getting your work done. We agreed this was the goal that we all wanted to get to. Your role, if you own the rock, is to shepherd that goal to completion, not to do the work, but to shepherd to completion. And when I find that my friend is struggling to do that work, I'm going to step in. I'm going to help. And that mindset is what was going to make you more successful as a team. I promise. Just being nice, making sure all your L10 meetings are very cheerful isn't going to get you there. And hopefully, if that's one of your problems too, you find yourself a coach because your coach will help you out with that, and be the guy that throws the chair, just so you can also, God, that guy's crazy, but he's right.
Yeah, and this person had a really interesting suggestion. So they said that they're starting this quarter to run a monthly meeting to do like a status update on their rocks. I would say hopefully your team is working towards eliminating it and just doing it in the weekly level 10. But it's like, if you've got to do that for, a couple months so that people understand, like, man, I want to get this meeting off my list, I'm going to actually be honest about this, or even asking people to do a Slack or an email update once a month with what their status is, like, figure out what works for your team. And it's, you just got to get people to the place where they realize that this is important. So.
Yeah, I think that's right. I mean, it's, whatever it takes to get you implemented. We have an implementation path in EOS, but I got plenty of clients that we'll do those half-day sessions. I do them all the time where, okay, you're struggling with your rocks. Let's figure out what else we need to go do to make it better, to make it smarter, to get us closer to our goal. But there's no reason most people that are running well on EOS don't need anything except for the L10 and the quarterly. That is all they need. And when you're a healthy team, that's what it's going to look like. So, but whatever it takes to get there, my friend, I support you.
All right. Data across multiple teams. Need to learn how to make data show from one team to another. How do I fix current measurable to read across different departments? Okay, so those good merging of questions there. So just like rocks, where rocks, you can have them appear on multiple teams, measurables work the same way, where you can have them show up in multiple places. So when you're on the scorecard here, you can use this plus sign to add a new measurable. You're only going to see that if you're a manager role or above. And then instead of creating a new measurable, which opens this up and you're literally creating something brand new and fresh, use the add an existing measurable. And this is pulling up a list of all the measurables that already exist in your account. So when you select these, they're probably already on other teams and you're just pulling them in for tracking on this specific team. So that's the button you want, is go ahead, use the plus sign, and then add an existing measurable instead of creating a new one.
Yeah, it's a great feature too, because you can put measurables on teams where that person isn't there, and it's just great. It gives everyone great visibility, because it should be an answer to the question, what do I need to see to feel like I know how the company's doing in any step.
Yeah. And I mean, even like on our dev team, we've got the client success report number for number of chats that come in about specific things. So it's like, they want to see that number because it means that they're doing their job well or not, even though they're not reporting on it. So
yes,
a lot of opportunity there. Undo feature request. Love this one. I actually was just talking with somebody about this. Maybe it was Blake, but yeah, they thought the same thing, because we can undelete anything for you, like if you chat into us, but we definitely want to make that easier for you guys to just go ahead and do it on your own. So just using like a Control-Z, or we even talked about in the settings area, just like, having a list of all the stuff you've deleted so that you can go back in and grab it if you need to. So I think that's a great request.
Is there are you sure thing that keeps you from deleting rocks, or?
That's the interesting thing. I think when you go delete, it's just gone. So no double verification for you. And then like, there's no pop-up that's like, all right, bring it back. That shows up for like a minute, or anything like that. So it would definitely be helpful. All right. Remembering the initial issue. When we get a few weeks into the quarter, they have trouble remembering what the initial issue is. We end up trying to solve 10 issues with one rock.
Yeah.
Struggle with what the initial issue was.
Yeah, and this is all about rock design and getting to that place where you've got a very clear description, a very clear title. It's worth the effort, because that's where people end up landing. the other thing I see is that when, especially with personal rocks, where they're not getting enough attention, people will keep layering on more stuff. And then we'll get to the end of the quarter. It's like, yeah, I didn't get it done because I saw more things I wanted to go do. Okay. But that's not really the point. The point, let's capture those issues and put them into next quarter's rock. I mean, it's easy to see things in front of you wanting to get accomplished, but the discipline you want to create is quarters go by super fast. And it can, when you're in it, it can seem like that's not the case, but they really do. You're going to have another chance at that next quarter. Chris Snyder, my partner, we're funny about that because he's constantly coming up with new crazy stuff he wants us to go do. And like any good visionary, out of every 20, there's one or two that are actually a good idea. But I've gotten really good at deflecting, like long-term issues list. We already got our priorities for the quarter, my friend. That's how we're going to focus. And like if it's any kind of that scope creep is what we used to call that kind of thing. Scope creep goes on the long-term issues list. You have to get to the place where that's the personal discipline of saying, my focus for the quarter is making this rock sing and getting my work done. And let's spend that creative time where like, oh, it could be more. It could be more. I appreciate that's true. Long-term issues list, and then start designing your rocks for next quarter right now. Right? You can type in rock candidate and then type the thing and then start taking notes. Take all those notes. So going into next quarter, I have all that information captured in the long-term issues list and say, folks, I'm so excited. Finally, I get to set this rock because I want to go to this rock. I had all these ideas. I put them in here. Here's all the attachments. Here's all the, and you just put all that stuff in there, including, by the way, a list of milestones you might put in there. Just all that creativity captured there so you can get back to focusing on winning this quarter.
Yeah. And I mean, if this is a problem for the team, I would say like have them define like what's the problem that we're trying to solve. Like do that when you're making your rock smart, make it as simple as possible for your team to like try and stay focused on that one thing.
I often with my teams also bring up the notion of user stories. This is an agile discipline where we define every problem as a story that has, as a blah, I want to be able to do blah, so that blah, right? So that format, just defining the problem that way, embeds the test into the description. So the test of completion, and this is a great way to have people that do work in the business talk to programmers and developers so that the developers can understand it. So as a user of this type, I want to be able to accomplish this outcome so that I want to accomplish this task so that this outcome occurs, right? So being really clear about that is a way for us to both take expectations and turn into agreements. This is the work that's going to be done. And then once again, limiting the scope so that we're not going too far out and then we get to the end of it and going, oh, that's not what I meant. So many small rocks, better than giant rocks.
Yes. All right, mapping tool. So realizing that the staff doesn't keep it up to date by uploading a new sheet on a weekly basis. So you're kind of doing a little bit more like project management or like tracking progress of the rock, maybe on like an external Google sheet or something like that. And you're looking for that to flow into your rocks within 90. We are setting up an API integration right now. So we're looking to connect through Zapier. So I don't know if you guys have seen or heard of Zapier before, but we will connect to this. And the nice thing about this is there are a ton of applications that already connect to it.
Literally a ton, yeah.
Yeah, so it's like great for sending notifications through Slack or email. You can pull in things from your Google Sheets or whatever it is. So that will be a way so that if you are doing work elsewhere or having people update something elsewhere, you can update your items in 90. So we're looking to connect rocks, to-dos, issues, measurables, everything set up there.
Yeah, I mean, we're a Google shop at 90. We're constantly doing work, but putting the links to those documents inside the rocks and inside the issues is
definitely
to make sure that all of it's captured right there.
Yeah, so I'll often like have another place where I am accomplishing what the rock is, and so if you just link to it, you can always just click on it and have a real-time look at the progress there too.
Cool.
All right, different time frames for rocks. We're striving for a 90, 60, 30-day rock, not all 90 days.
Okay. Well, I mean, so I appreciate the having smaller rocks. This is one of those things where it might be a great development for you, where you're taking a 30-day view of things. Like I talked about before, certainly with the pandemic, I coached plenty of clients into that. And if you're already pretty good at rocks and you just want to try to get more done on a regular basis, you're kind of transitioning from rock world into sprint world. Right. So, because people do 30-day sprints, they do 14-day sprints. Christine, what are we on at 90?
We're 2-week sprints.
2-week sprints. Yeah. So, I think there's nothing particularly wrong with it. There's no reason not to do it if you're really good at doing that stuff already. We try to get everyone aligned on 90-day cycles within the leadership team, so it's consistent, so we know what to do. And then, but I certainly have clients who, as we cascade down to the rest of the organization, they're talking about shorter rocks. Sometimes just to have more management control, and so we're not going too far afield before things. And sometimes because that rock's not that big, it should be able to get done in this period of time, and we're trying to manage someone's time and application better. But in general, I don't have too much else to say about this. I know it, like internally at 90 and at Impact Architects, we have plenty of instances where, hey, we got to put this event together. That's going to be a rock. Event's going to be over before the end of the quarter, and the follow-up is going to be over a month before the end of the quarter. Is it still a 90-day rock? It's like, yeah, we're just going to be done. I don't know.
Right.
You can get the rock done the first month if you want to. That's fine.
Nothing wrong with being done early. I know I pick some up all the time where it's like, I know I'm going to get this done faster than 90 days, but there's no reason it's not a to-do. I can't get it done tomorrow. So you got to live in that world, and at least you're still celebrating on the 90-day cycle. Yeah,
I mean, but like I said, I think there's nothing particularly wrong with it. It's not taught at all. It's impure. It's not an EOS thing, but I think if you're there and you're looking to accelerate things on teams, man, I say go, man, go if you can manage it.
Yeah.
And you can set rock delivery dates to whatever you want them. That's it's flexible enough to do that kind of thing. So.
Yeah. And I think like the idea of setting your due date like two weeks before your next quarterly, great, that way you're giving people, you're expecting it to be done, not having that to wrap it up at the end of the quarter. So if that's what's working best for you, I say more power to you. Keep doing that.
Everybody eventually, if they start with EOS, they start with scaling up or whatever they start with, they eventually get to having their own company operating system. That is the goal. So if this is what's working for you and you can get everyone consistent and you can teach that so everyone's followed by all, then you are winning. So go, yes. I bless it entirely. We start with a simpler model because we can get everybody on it, but you get to the model that really works for you. Just don't go there before you're ready. Master these simpler tools. Then that's a 203, maybe a 303 approach to rock management. But if you're on it, man, go. I love it. Tell us how it goes. Tell us what we need to do to support you better in the software. That's what I say.
Yeah, that's a great point. So this is a good one, which I'm not sure we covered in detail, but the difference between a company rock, a departmental rock, and then an individual rock.
Yeah, so the coach notion of this is that company rocks are the company's priorities for the quarter, and they're going to go on the VTO, and they're going to be communicated to all the stakeholders of the organization. Ultimately, your VTO, when it's fully realized, you're comfortable sharing it with all of your employees in every possible way, maybe with your trading partners, even with your customers, because this is what we're focused on this quarter. And that's the notion of the company rock. As a leadership and management approach, it's really about making sure that we're all in agreement. These are the most important things for us to get accomplished. And that means, hey, if Christine's got a company rock and it's the most important thing this quarter. And I've got something else. I've got a personal rock that I'm working on, but she needs my help. She wins. I'm going to help out that because we've agreed as a team, that's the most important thing to get done. So it's a level of priority and a level of visibility that, and how we're communicating about the rest of the world. And then it works to the next level down with department rocks. Department rocks, this department, the most important thing for us to do this quarter are these, 1 to 5 things, less is more until it's not. And all the same things apply. So we expect that all the rocks support our approach to getting to our 1-year goals and our 3-year target and our 10-year target, and we export that roll up to happen as much as possible. Hey, this is going to help us get things out of the way. This is just directly helps us get there. But and so your personal rocks are things you're going to do to make your environment better, right? And they don't need broader visibility than that. It's about me making my domain, when I go back out and leave the leadership team and I go back to my part of the organization, I'm making it better. These are my rocks to make that better. And if I run a department, everyone in the department needs to be able to see this, know that's the thing, and maybe take on rocks to support it. And the company rocks, maybe I take on some rocks to support the company rock as well. So simplify that. It's about visibility. It's about priorities, and it's about alignment.
Perfect. All right.
Does that make sense?
I think that's a good explanation. I think when I heard that, like, especially with the company side of things, I think a lot of people struggle with when is it that top priority? And it's like when everybody on the team says, we have to do this and we have to get the company excited about it, because if we don't, something could not get accomplished, or we need them to know about these things so that they can better set their departmental rocks.
Yeah, and we've experienced even this last quarter. I don't go into details, but we'd set something at one quarterly. It didn't get done by the next quarterly, and we all realized that it's because we didn't make it clear to everybody that this was the most important thing. And right. So, okay, bad on all of us for not making sure that was communicated over and over again. So now we're going to make it race to the top. It's first on the list. Use all those tools. It's a communication tool. All right. And then part of what you're doing as a leadership team and as part of LMA is communicating the priorities to the rest of the organization. That is part of L. That is part of leadership. This is where we're going this quarter. Come on, everybody. What do you need? That's management, right? And I can only hold you accountable if I've done this first two. So.
All right. Rock suggestions. I feel like we went through a couple of these, maybe with the looking at your day-to-day work and figuring out if you need to make processes out of anything, marketing campaigns. My
favorite 2 templated rocks, Christine, are the onboarding rock.
Oh, that's a good one.
And the hiring rock. Every company has people, when they're onboarding people, there's things that you should give everybody that comes on board to get done in the first quarter. And there's different milestones, things people have to contribute to help you get to that place. And the objective of the onboarding rock is to shorten the amount of time that someone can say, I'm new here. That is the worst excuse for ineptitude I've ever heard. And some companies, when I hear that, I'll ask, well, how long in this company do you allow people to say that? And that's a little embarrassing because sometimes it's a year. No, a quarter is good time. Yeah, let's get you 100% focused on becoming part of us in every possible way. So, because otherwise you let things slide. Like, oh, I'm not quite sure what that means. I'll get to it later. Oh, I don't have that working yet. Give them the onboarding rock. And let's be really clear with what being part of this organization looks like and what you need to get done to feel completely embedded and productive. And then hiring rock, everyone's got processes for hiring. And every time someone has to go hire, you're usually talking about integrating with another part of the team somewhere else that doesn't do HR. They should know exactly what to do. What are the steps to hire this person? And all those milestones should be already baked in with timelines.
Right. I think those are 2 really good ones. And I just jotted down a couple of examples of what we have in our hiring rock in case you're looking for ideas. So like we have certain materials that they're reading. Obviously, one of those is traction. They're getting really familiar with our VTO, things like that. They're having specific meetings with key team members, getting access to the tools they need to do their job, maybe learning those tools and going through the tool training as part of that onboarding rock.
Oh, yeah, our system training with Jim Haviland. That's a great one.
Yeah, and then and then
My favorite.
30 days, I like to do a quarterly conversation with the people that I'm bringing on board specifically, because I think it's a great opportunity to like have that check-in point, and you're going through the core values, you're going through their accountability chart sheet for GWC. And so I feel like even just that conversation sets them up for knowing like how we'll interact moving forward on a quarterly basis, but also gives them the context for like how they're doing in the past 30 days and accomplishing this onboarding rock.
Love it. Eventually, Christine, we are going to have rock templates, right?
Yes, I would love to have rock templates. And that probably gets into like the smart template aspect too,
Right.
Because I would love to have a spot like in the, either it's in settings or it's somewhere where when you create a rock, if you want specific questions answered or like just specific text in there, would love to have that for you. And yeah, it looks like that's exactly what this person.
Yeah, and because there is no exactly right way to do this. It's about getting to agreement about what is necessary to make the rock smart. And like everything in project management, you don't want to put 4 pounds of project management for a 3-ounce project. So it's really about coming up with the right amount of oversight and structure and meta information, so you're doing the right thing. And coming to agreement what that means within your organization.
Yeah. So for now, like I would just type out these questions and just copy and paste them as you're creating the rocks. Actually, if you run a quarterly meeting, the first time you go to that rocks page, there'll be a little pop-up that you can just copy and paste it from too. So that
make it a process. So make that one of your processes. So this is how we make rocks smart. We cut and paste this in there. You complete these things. You have to have this many milestones. Yada yada yada.
Yeah. So other than that, like the scope, budget, deliver, like all of that kind of stuff, great if you want to include it. Like Jim said, put it in your process documentation of how you guys create rocks and make them smart. This is probably just like the most standard, way to think about it and questions.
With some slight variability on a couple of the letters, but it's not wrong.
Yeah. All right, handling rocks that might be missed.
Yeah, all of the above. So if circumstances change, if context changes during a quarter and the rock that you originally intended doesn't make sense or needs to change of scope or needs to be put on pause, or you have to decide as a team how you want to handle it. That's the most important thing. As a team, what do we feel about this? Are we going to take the hit on our rock completion rate because we just made a mistake? This wasn't the right rock. We weren't thinking clearly, or things changed a lot and we need a different outcome from this. So I'm going to change the scope. I think as long as you all agree, I'm good with that. Or I need to change the scope right now. I'm going to go this far. I'm going to get this done. That's accomplishable. Do we all agree that is a worthwhile outcome? I've done that plenty with my own personal rocks, realizing that I was shooting for the moon and I could be persuasive in a meeting. It's like, I'm going to get all this done in the quarter. They're pulling back like, that makes no sense, Jim. Hey, team, I think this is a more reasonable outcome. It's still going to teach us everything we needed to know, and I'll make my case for it. And I'll take the judgment of the team as to whether or not that means, no, Jim, that's a non-completed rock, or just set it off track and leave it there and do the best you possibly can. Or yeah, let's change scope and aim at this right now, because that's still going to get us where we wanted to go. And that's the test that I usually answer at question for myself, Christine, is, am I still making the progress I intended with the original rock? Regardless of what I wrote down, it's like, okay, you know what? This is really what we wanted anyway. So let's just accept this. And quite often, what it does is free you up to stop working on it and banging your head against it, because that's the best possible outcome.
Yeah, and I know a lot of times, like what we opt for internally is just writing like deprioritize next to it. Not that I can spell right now that I'm talking, but if you just like put that indicator on there, it's going to be off track and you're going to see it every single week. But I don't know, there's some sort of like learning where being able to talk about why you deprioritize something when you go through your quarterly meeting is kind of like, yeah, it's not going towards your completion rate. Yeah, that sucks. But I feel like there's still learning to be had from that, where it's not just like, yeah, get it off the list. We don't want to see it. You know, there was a reason you put it there. So
yeah, because you want to capture the fact that you had, you changed direction in the quarter, and especially if it's you want to just own that learning from it. I mean, that's the most important thing: developing the discipline of making better decisions, better goals, and stuff's going to change around you, man. And just, there's no EOS heaven.
Yeah.
Did I mention that? There's no EOS heaven.
I don't think so.
Run your best company. Run the best company you possibly can.
So this one, we unfortunately don't have notifications right now. I'd love to like be able to tag people in comments or see like a thread of change tracking on this item. So I think all of these are absolutely excellent suggestions. As far as like the current reminders and notifications, remember to go to the user settings area and set up this email. So every day, get it before your level 10 meetings, like whenever makes sense for you, but this includes rock and milestone information. So I would really encourage you to set that up.
Yeah. Somewhat of a hidden feature, right? Because it defaults to nothing happening.
So if you have had your account for a while, since we launched this, there's not going to be anything set up, but anybody new that's getting their account created, I believe it's a default Monday, Thursday, 8 a.m. and their time zone. So we've since fixed that, but I bet a lot of people have been, a 90 user longer than, 3 months, which is I think when we got that stuff out.
Got it. Okay, cool.
Assigning milestones. Yes, you can do this. And it's any user in the account. So as long as they're a user where you see them in your drop-down list when you're creating items, you're good to assign them a milestone.
Yeah, and definitely do that. Do it as much as you possibly can.
Yeah. I scribe for 90. How do you set up to-dos correctly if you have no idea what the team may be talking about?
Yes. You suck it up and just say, guys, I want you to be really, and you're not being an idiot. You're asking them to be very clear about what they want, because chances are if they can't explain it clearly, then they don't really understand it. So you're actually helping them out, help them to be more clear in their communication between each other, turn expectations into agreements, say, hey, I want to create a to-do. How do I make this to-do really clear so that you understand it completely?
Yeah. And I think, even as a person that is actively participating on the team and like the one that's typing things in, I often ask, like, what do you want me to write down? Because especially it's not just when you're creating an issue, but like when you're creating a rock, you want everybody on the team to like we talked about, the title is what is unifying everybody and saying like everybody understands what this means. So having them redefine it is probably a great exercise for them to go through anyway.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And the more you can kind of coach them in these moments too, by saying, guys, how do I make this clear for you?
Yeah.
Right. It's like that's the outcome. That's the outcome we're trying to get to, is clarity, so everyone can look at it and know exactly what it means. How do I get there? And it should be on that team to be able to do that very, very well for you. But it's great to hear that you're scribing for the team, because it's definitely one of those things we suggest. Have someone that's not participating in the meeting, not running the meeting, at least, scribing for the meeting. So good for you.
Yeah. Rock first to do. I know we talked about a little bit about this earlier when we were talking about the due date scenario. So I would just a rock is really like the team buy-in is huge, I think, when we're thinking about a rock. And then also the need to delegate those subtasks out, the milestones.
Right.
It's just such a clear difference from just a single, I can go off on my own and do this to do. And, maybe nobody cares. Yeah.
But there's almost no downside risk to mistakenly creating a rock that really was a to-do. There's lots of downside risk to creating a to-do that's actually a rock. So default to a rock if you think it might take too much time, and just mark it done early, man, and enjoy the rest of your quarter, or take on another small rock. I mean, you can take on more rocks during the quarter. I guess we never talked about that, but we do that all the time. Well, we call them mini rocks. We don't call them 13-week rocks. But is that a mini rock? Yeah, it's a mini rock. If it's going to take more than 2 weeks, it's a mini rock. And just to make sure you phased it so you're doing the right thing this quarter. The right scope of stuff, and you'll get it wrong sometimes, and you'll have to have a conversation about it. It's okay.
All right amount of rocks. It's no more. It's 7. I feel like is a number I hear a lot. Is that right or wrong?
The magic number is 42. No, there is no right or wrong answer to rocks. So coming up with agreement about the amount of work, and it takes time to get there. As a coach, when you're first taking on rocks, I coach like usually if we're taking on rocks during focus day, or what we now call foundation day here at Impact Architects. 1 rock. I'm gonna give you 1 rock. Get good at that rock. Knock that rock out. Still going to get to 80%. That's the best we'll possibly hope for. Once we get into the quarterlies, I will hold back. Like I told you the story about Ron Kaminsky taking, that's a team he's been working with for a long time, but he recognized they weren't going to get all 4 of those rocks done. 3 was all they were going to pull off. So a talented coach will help you out, can help you out with that. But 80% is about the right number of rock completion rate. So if you're going every quarter getting 100%, you need some more rocks. Push yourself a little bit, push yourself beyond your limits, and just accept that, okay, that wasn't scoped better. So 80% completion rate is both about keeping you from taking on too many rocks and not getting enough of them done, and also from not taking enough rocks. And it's not the quantity, it's the overall scope. So, getting good as a team at making rocks a scope that you understand, and that's really the key. I understand the scope of this. It should take about this long. And then just plan your time out. If I told you it's 20% of your overall time to get rocks done, you should be able to, if you want to do the time study, you could. That means I got this many hours between this date and this date to work on rocks. How many rocks can I take? And you'll go, eventually you'll get good at it. Just like we do in Scrum, eventually you're good at figuring out what a sprint really looks like.
Yeah. And I think just having that agreement with the person when you're going through that rock setting process before you wrap up and go to IDS in your quarterly, like go to each person and say, like, will you get this done? They'll have a gut reaction of that feels like so much, or like, oh yeah, I totally have this. So use that as a guide too. Your people will help you. When do you discuss rocks? During level 10 meetings? When is it appropriate for a team member to bring their rock up for discussion? As a facilitator, I have set the expectation that IDS is not for working on projects, but resolving issues. Rocks should be worked on outside the level 10s.
Yeah, a little bit of a semantic trouble spot here. So when we say issues in EOS, other systems call them different things. There's like issues and opportunities, or just topics is a non-generic term. So when we get into that issue solving part of the meeting, it isn't just about issues. It's about whatever the most urgent, important thing this team needs to resolve. So it's really about trying to get to resolution. So your rocks, by the way, should be the most important thing you need to work on. So if you've got a topic, if a rock is not going well, or you got questions about it, drop it to the bottom. That's what I teach all my teams to say, drop it to the bottom. So you don't talk about it during the rock reporting session. And then prioritize those things at the bottom appropriately, so that anyone that's got a rock dependency on it probably needs to talk about today, so that things don't wait. But that's the appropriate time for someone to give a report, ask for a change to the rock scope, tell people, the dirty truth about something, hold someone accountable for, hey, I asked you to do this thing, something's getting in the way because you're not doing it. All that is in IDS.
Yeah. And I completely agree with this person. Like, IDS is not for working on the rock. Like, you're not doing a presentation of like a status update or, anything like that. So any work that's happening on the rock, like, you might need to set up a separate meeting of like, hey, like, this is part of a milestone. Like, I need to show you guys this and get approval on this. Like, issues is for like like you said, Jim, we're trying to resolve this because it's off track. And if we don't resolve it, the rock is at risk.
Yeah, so I've seen, there are a number of, often rocks the final milestone will be present to the team for approval, right? And if you've got time in your L10s to do it, then that's fine. But more than likely, if it really work to be done there, you're going to have to do it outside the scope of the L10. So, but once again, no EOS heaven. Just make your best decision on where the most appropriate use of time is for that. If you've got 40 issues on your issues list and someone wants to make a presentation during the level 10, say, I think there's a better time for that.
Yeah. All right. By 90 milestones, can't see where the rock came from. So yeah, you can see the rock icon. So if I'm assigned a milestone for a rock that I didn't own, it shows up on my 90. So we're there a way to see which rock it is associated to. Yes. So on my 90, next to each milestone, there is a rock icon. So instead of clicking on the milestone itself, just click on the rock icon and it pulls up that rock specifically. So you have access to that right there, even if you don't own the rock. So if you own any aspect, here's the milestone. Alexander actually owns the rock specifically, but I can see it because I just clicked on this icon. So you have access to that. Let's see. By 90, it's that one. Rocks when a leadership team member leaves. So if you need to reassign a rock versus leaving it on the list.
So that is an issue you're going to have to resolve as a team. What's the best way to handle this? If it's still a priority for the organization, if it's a company rock or department rock, then you probably have to reassign it and just keep move forward as best you possibly can. If you've got to rehire that position before this rock can get done, then you're probably going to just take the hit. It's not going to get done and turn it into a long-term issue. And when that next person comes along, you'll determine at that point whether it needs to be readdressed, or you rescope it. What can we get done with this? But all those things are on the table, and it's just about getting agreement as a team.
Perfect. Drop a rock to the bottom of the list. So rocks you can drag and drop on your own individual list if it was referring to that. And then if you were referring to making it an issue for discussion, all you do is right click on it and there'll be a make it an issue and create a to-do button. So I think
that's when I say drop it to the bottom. That's what I'm talking about. Drop to the bottom of the agenda. Anything at the top of the agenda, just people will always want to talk about it in that moment, and just don't let them. It's good. It's much better to talk about it in priority order. And if it's not really important, then you won't talk about it.
This one, I would love to do milestone statuses where you're actually seeing like the percentage of the rock that's completed based on how many milestones are done. Would love to do that.
That'd be awesome.
Yeah, scope and get approval on it, but soon.
Thanks for the suggestion, though.
Yes, love it. When is a rock an issue? Very new.
Right.
I think we've covered this a bit, any time where somebody feels like it's, at risk of not getting done, there's a question that needs answering, anything like that.
Yeah, that's exactly right. I mean, it's really that the idea of turning a rock into an issue is really about if it's not moving forward, if there's nothing to talk about. If it's moving forward, it's going to get done on time, then it's not an issue. It's just on track. That's all there is. Which is great. But if there is anything that might get you in the way, and early on, as you're getting started, default to making sure you talk about it, get to the bottom and get to agreement. Hey, I'm having a time with this, and just if everyone's in agreement that things are okay, when you're first starting out, people aren't used to being really open and honest. They're used to leaving each other alone, and that's not great. I can't remember which coach to give credit to this to her, but most athletes don't want to hear from anybody. Good athletes want to be coached. Great athletes want to know the truth.
Yes.
And so you will, if you keep going, you will eventually want to know the truth. I promise. Who do we assign that to, Stephen? Are you enough of a sports fan to know which coach gets that one?
It's a Belichick, I'm pretty sure.
Okay.
You knew he would know. Now he's going to Google it though.
Yeah. I think there's like multiple answers. It's been attributed multiple times. So someone can argue with me on Reddit about it later.
Yeah. So cloning anything works the same way, where when you right click, just use the create a to do, make it an issue, any of those options, and then change it to the item you want it to be. So that's the easiest way to clone something. So I'm turning this issue into another issue because I just clicked make it a to do and changed it to an issue. So right click, just use any of create a to do or make it an issue for that.
It's a bit of a workaround, but it's
works for now.
Yeah.
All right. So for weekly and monthly data, information doesn't transition across because 4 weeks doesn't always equal a month. We do have in beta an option for trailing 4 and 13 weeks so that you could see a combined view of the last 4 weeks of data from your weekly scorecard. So if you would like access to that beta program so that you can use that feature, just use the chat button down here and let them know you want to get added to beta, and they can send you an article of what's all included in the beta program as far as the features we have released right now. And you can use that option for seeing your weekly data aggregated.
Scorecard is chock full of new stuff coming soon, my friends. It's going to be so freaking exciting.
I am very excited about it.
Calculations.
How much time should we spend on rocks? Oh, so when they're just like working weekly, mark 1 day a week, break it up.
So I mean, it's a great question to kind of answer for yourself. There is no right answer. I mean, a lot of our folks at 90 are fractional, so they will have to be very disciplined with their time. Like my partner Chris, he does a lot of sessions, but he's also fractional with 90, and he sets about days where he blocks out. He's got session days and he's got 90 days. So I do something similar where I go once a week and I go, okay, I need this many blocks to work on this many rocks, and then I'll set it out. But that's a personal approach to it. Whatever works best for you, but 20% is about the benchmark. And sometimes you just can't do it week over week. You need to spend a full day or 2 full days this week and then no time next week. Just
on your schedule. Yeah.
Is there a EOS heaven, Stephen? No, there is not. There's no EOS heaven.
All right. What happens if you don't get through all the issues? Oh, that's okay. How many should you have? Oh, yeah.
You're doing a good job of collecting issues. You're never going to get through all your issues.
That's why you prioritize. So
that's why you prioritize.
Yeah, usually. So like obviously this is a little bit different of a setting using the issues list, but usually you'll pick your top 3 and say, this is what's important. If it takes us the full hour, we're doing it. If not,
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. You got to pull. Don't do it in any other order except for priority order. Pick those first. There's a couple methods for that. The pure method is to pick the top most 3 important ones and take them to the top. We've got a tool for that to make it really easy to get to your top 3. You can drag and drop these things in priorities. Almost all my clients have taken on putting numbers before the names of the rocks so they can sort the names in appropriate order.
So if you go like this one's important today, we'll make it a 5. And then this one's less important, so we'll make it a 4. And then when you're looking at your issues list, then your ones with the number order will come to the top. So you can
I mean, and I think everybody at 90, we all coach our clients to use a 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 methodology. 5 have to be talked about today. So that'd be anything associated with a rock, we get a 5. in your weekly meeting. 4s would be, should talk about today. 3 are nice to haves. Twos are, the 2s are not likely. 1s are like probably going to become long-term issues. So,
Yeah.
and you just go through it. I mean, you're like, yeah. And sometimes we get down to our 3s in our weekly meetings. And go, do we have really time and energy to go through the 3s, or but go through and give them the appropriate numbers so they get the appropriate attention.
Definitely. Feature requests. So we are looking to implement this. Hopefully we'll have a lot of the development work done this quarter so that we can do, late fall, winter release for it. But yeah, that's the exact idea we want to have, is combining multiple measurables together so that it auto calculates the score based on the other ones you're entering.
This could be so hot.
Yes, I'm excited. That plus being able to use Zapier to auto pull in numbers from other systems.
Boom.
Gonna make the scorecard so easy.
Yeah. Data superpower.
Yes. Yes, an admin can upload photos of other users. The only restriction is that you can't upload them for other admins or owners. So it's all based on your role in the system. So an admin could add it for managers and below, and then an owner could add it for anybody. So just check your role. Owner is like complete access, whereas admin, you can add it for yourself, and then the managers, managees, and observers.
Oh yeah, Doc Rivers. Yeah, Doc Rivers. But it's true. It's absolutely true. So it applies to all parts of life, not just basketball. Basketball is life, though, if you think about it. Just teasing.
So another feature request, being able to see connections between rocks, to-dos, and issues. Another one I completely agree with. Another one I'm trying to get approval and launch for. So like even out of your issues, like when I created to-do, just being able to see the line items of the to-dos that you've created and being able, to track that would be amazing. So love it. Completely agree. Thanks.
Love it.
Yes. How do we print a rock with its milestones? Right now, we don't have individual printing of items. So when you, for example, go to print to PDF on the rocks page, it's just going to give you the titles and statuses and due dates and such. It is on our feature request list. So definitely appreciate you bringing that up. For right now, I would say just, a screenshot or something like that is probably your main option as far as like getting a actual printed version of it.
Yuck.
I know.
Okay. I'll accept it though.
Yeah, but good feature request. IDS length estimate. Oh, I've heard of this. So being able to like time box. So, okay, here's an issue and we want to give it 10 minutes and like setting a timer on it. That's another one I think is a great idea. I know like we even just did that, I feel like on Monday, Jim.
Yeah.
Like, all right, let's talk about this for 5 minutes and not give it any more time.
And we blew right through 5 minutes because we didn't have a timer.
Yeah. So I love the idea of just being able to like quickly click that in the system and you've already got the timer.
That's brilliant. I love it.
Yeah. All right. I think we've got our last two here. So milestones on rocks page bug. When you hover over a milestone, what does the black bubble mean? So it should be populating with the description of the milestone. So I'll show you an example. So like these don't have a description, so really like it shouldn't show up. So that is kind of a weird thing. But if I put text here, then when you hover over it, it's meant to show you what the description of the item is without having to go and click into it. So that's what the little black bubble does.
When text equals 0, bubble equals no.
Yes, we need developers.
We already fixed it.
Fixed
it. Yeah.
All right. And then last one is shared rocks create issues. If I created a company rock as part of the leadership team and shared it with a different team in discussions with that other team, can I create an issue out of it? Yeah, so essentially you pick where you want the issue to reside. So when my rock is on multiple teams, so here it's on 2 teams, when I go to create the issue, it'll probably just default to the team that I'm on because that's the team I'm running the meeting in. But if we're saying, hey, we need leadership to go look at XYZ and we write them a little note about why we put an issue on their team, you can do that too.
And including signing it to a person, like there's an individual person needs to present this at that, so you can, you know. Well, on the who, you can assign the who.
Oh, yeah, you can definitely type that in too. So whenever you start typing in, it comes up where you can pick a person's name there too. So this usually indicates like who is the issue with. So if you want to like indicate a specific person to like draw attention to, or you can just type in like marketing department, like that's kind of open for whatever you want to do there. Hopefully
Cool.
that's a question.
Phew.
We did it. 41, our list grew.
Is anyone left? Is there people still?
Yeah, I know. I'm very appreciative of everyone that stuck around. I know we like really blew past our time, but I think it was really valuable. So
Yeah, great questions, everybody. Thanks so much for contributing, and
yeah, no regrets. But yeah, appreciate everyone being a part of this. We'll obviously send out a recording in case you want to share with your team or anything like that. And then continue to let us know questions, feedback, feature requests, whatever you've got. Happy to take them and look forward to seeing you guys next month too.
this will be on YouTube, and then submitted to, it's now feature length, so submitted to the Oscars for documentary consideration.
I know, right? All right. Yeah. Thanks.
Thanks, everybody. Really appreciate it. Good to see you, Christine. Thanks for your help, Stephen, and we'll see y'all next month.
Great. Thanks. Bye.
Bye, everybody.
Hi, everybody.